Let's talk about the impact of a toxic father or the lack of a father on a son's development and how that's likely to affect his relationships as an adult. This is the last video in my 4-video series about toxic parents. I'm a little bit hesitant about this one because this is a really heavy topic, and honestly, I don't know if I feel qualified to talk about this, but I do have a lot of opinions about this. And perhaps, at the very least, this could be the beginning of a conversation. As a young boy, having a negative relationship with your father is going to disrupt your development in a lot of areas. So if you're raised by a toxic father or without a father, you're already at a disadvantage. However, there are a couple of positive things that you can take away from this experience. They certainly don't outweigh the negatives, but there is a silver lining. First, this need for father figure is not going to go away simply because you're not able to get it met from your father. It's a very deeply held instinct that every man feels to be accepted and approved by the masculine. So if you don't get that from your father, you're vulnerable to look for this father figure in other places. A lot of them can be unhealthy. I think it's not a coincidence that a lot of men who ended up in gang violence were raised without a father. The next one is quite obvious, but extremely important. That is the lack of a positive male role model. Your father is the earliest example of what a man is, and through his behavior, you unconsciously form an idea of what it means to be a man. But without a father, how are you supposed to grow up to be a man when you don't have anyone who can demonstrate in a positive way what it means to be a man? Especially for boys, masculinity is very difficult to understand. It's not natural for a young boy to feel masculine. He has to be masculine. It is external, and you need to see it being done before you know what it really is. So what tends to happen is that you're going to grow up feeling a hole in your existence where that strong masculine male role model was meant to be. Because there's that hunger for masculinity to know what it's like to be a man, to see things from a man perspective. So as a result, you have to learn all of this by yourself, and you're going to make so many more mistakes. Some of them can destroy the rest of your life. It will be so much more easier if you had a male role model and you could just go along with the positive examples that he created for you. Now, it can also go the other way. Instead of having a father and seeing the positive form of masculinity, your father is displaying a negative form of masculinity. So if you have a negative relationship with your father, he could be the archetype of a man, the way you view masculinity. So if he is a drunk and abusive, he treats you and your mother horribly. Over time, you can develop a hatred for masculinity. And in some extreme cases, you can reject masculinity altogether. That's not good because that's not all men. That's just your father. So you shouldn't reject masculinity itself. You should reject the negative form of it and try to find positive form of masculinity. Now, oftentimes when you reject masculinity, you tend to sympathize a lot with femininity. But the thing is, femininity doesn't sit well as a man. It's not very attractive. Men who are really feminine or men who are really on team women, they're viewed as suspicious. Women won't admit it, but they know there's something off about it. Something's not right. Speaking of rejecting masculinity, another thing that might come up is the fear of becoming like your toxic father. There's a psychological mechanism that we have, almost like expressing loyalty, where you empathize or imitate the person who's been abusing you as a way of coping with that situation. Sort of like Stockholm Syndrome. You see, boys who dislike their fathers but still reenact the same behavior when they become adults, in a strange way, it's like they're still trying to get the approval from their fathers. So let's say your father abandoned you and your mom when you were a child. How many guys end up repeating the same patterns in their romantic relationships? They end up abandoning their families and their kids. It's not like they consciously set out to do it. It's not like they're saying, oh, once I have a family, I'm going to abandon my children. No, they don't want to do that. But this is the power of having seen what's been modeled for you as a child. These feelings and instincts that you have, they might be stronger than your rational thoughts. There's like a momentum pushing you to repeat the same patterns, the same mistakes that your father did. Another consequence of a toxic father is that you can develop a hatred for women. If you have a bad relationship with your father, in some cases, you can put the blame on your mother. Maybe the reason why your father is miserable and why he's acting like an asshole is because of your toxic mother. Or if your father abandoned the family because of some horrible fights with your mother, you can blame your mother for him leaving. It can turn you into a genuine misogynist. This can be the result of having a toxic father because even though he's not a good guy, you can still empathize with him and you blame the fact that he's not a good guy on external sources like your mother. The next one is that you miss out on the opportunities to learn the skills and the knowledge that a man is supposed to pass on to his son. I know it might sound cheesy, but things like fixing stuff around the house, building things, camping, hunting, fishing, playing sports. I'm not saying that women are not capable of teaching their son this stuff, but there's just something different about learning it from your father. It's an amazing bonding experience. Now, personally, my dad was a PE teacher as well as an athlete, so growing up, he taught me to play all kinds of sports. Soccer, volleyball, swimming, badminton, tennis. He even took me to his tournaments where he was competing. By watching him compete to see the discipline, the passion, the way he interacted with other people, the way he interacted with his teammates, I saw the kind of person he is, and he taught me to do the same thing. To me, that is an invaluable father and son experience. Another element of this experience is the approval of masculinity. When your father taught you to do something and there's no words, there's no feelings involved, it's a purely masculine task. There's a goal to be achieved, and the only measure of success is whether you get it done. Once he taught you how to do something and you successfully did it by yourself, and he saw that and he approved of it, that is a powerful experience for a young boy. But if you didn't have a father growing up, or you had a toxic father who didn't care about you, then you missed out on that experience, and that sucks. That really sucks. Another one that I have is that if you don't have a good relationship with your father, then you don't have anyone to be aspired to be equal to. As a man, you're going to be action driven. You got somewhere you want to be, some goals you want to achieve, the kind of man that you want to become. And the benchmark for these achievements should be set by your father. If your father is genuinely the best guy you know, then there's a huge motivation for you to be just like your father. You know, I can't think of a better gift that a father can give to a son than to be the father that his son aspires to be like. That is an amazing thing. The last one I have is that if you don't have a good relationship with your father, then you don't have the final authority figure who can validate your success and whose approval means the world to you. What do I mean by this? If you are a good man, you should have the respect and approval of your mother, your wife, your children, your colleagues. But nothing is more meaningful than the approval of a good father. If you have a good relationship with your father and he is your hero, his approval means so much more. Because your mother, your wife, your children, they will never be able to understand what it's like to be a man and to have those responsibilities. It's such a gift to be able to give that to a son, to be the kind of man whose approval means something, and to have a father who you see as your hero, look you in the eyes and say, son, you've done an amazing job with your life. You are a better man than I am. I approve of everything that you've done, and I just want you to know that I am very proud of you. That will be the most meaningful moment in so many men's lives, if they can ever get that. And not having a positive father in your life, it robs you of that experience. And it sucks. Male-to-male validation. We don't talk about it very much, but it's really important. So if you don't have a father, you turn other people into father figures to try to look for it. But it will never mean the same. Alright, this brings me to the silver lining, the positives. If you don't have a good relationship with your father, you have the opportunity to be better than him. You see the mistakes that he makes, don't make the same mistakes. Be a better man than your father. However, the only problem here is that it's all up to you to decide. You can't appeal to anybody else to get confirmation of whether you're a good man or not. So let's say your father was a drunk, abusive, abandoned his family. But you're not like that. You don't have any addictions. You marry a wonderful woman. You have children, and you stick around to provide and protect for your family. You are a better man than your father. And that's empowering. That's pretty damn good. I know it doesn't outweigh all the negatives, but it's still something. It's a consolation prize. The last thing I have is that you get to take credit for your own success. If you didn't have any role model growing up, you didn't rely on anybody, and you did everything on your own, and you succeeded, you become a man that other people admire. That's amazing. That is amazing. And it's all you. It's very difficult, and not a lot of people can do it. But for those who do make it, that is amazing. And I really hope you care about your own opinion more than the opinion of your toxic father. Because it would be tragic if you worked so hard all this time to become a great man, and it didn't mean as much to you as the approval of your toxic father, whose opinion you should really ignore. As terrible as your father might have been, you have the opportunity to be the better man. Use the fact that you wish you've gotten something as motivation to do better. Alright, I'm gonna end it there. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Let me know your thoughts and experiences. If you want to learn about the impact of a toxic mother on a boy's development, check out this video here. Until next time, stay curious.